Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55.
Okay, guys, I'm super excited about today's guest. She was referred from a dear friend of mine, so I know she is going to be amazing. And wait until you hear what she's been doing for the last couple of years. But Patti Stueland is this is my tongue twister, Pathfinder of Pathways with Patti. And we are going to learn just what an amazing woman she is and what she's doing. And she's a motivational speaker and a transformational coach. And she's been traveling the U.S. for the last 4 years in an RV, and we're going to learn a lot about that today. So welcome, Patti. I'm so glad you're here.
Hello, Christina, and I am so excited to be here, and I am so glad that our mutual friend connected us to be able to have this moment together.
I know. So I want to go backwards in time, as I do with everybody, but where are you right now today?
Right now, today, I am at my home base, which is in my mother's backyard in the high desert, Apple Valley in Southern California. This is where my mail comes to, and during the in-between times of when I'm actually on the road, this is where my home base is set up with. So it has full electrical and water and sewer and all that good stuff, and allows me some quality time with my mom. To take care of little daughter do list, as I like to call them, and help her take care of those things. And then starting June 1st until December 1st, I will be back on the road traveling more of the United States. Right now, I've covered probably about 70% of the United States in the last almost 4 years now. And if it wouldn't have been for that COVID, I probably would have been at 100% by now. But you know what? It's all good and it's all in God's timing. That's how I look at it.
So just first thing I thought of, what does your mother think? I mean, no matter what age you are, your mother's still your mother. Is she like, Patti, this is so cool that you're doing that? Or is she like, go get a job, Patti, what are you doing? Like, what's the plan here?
Well, the thing is, she knows that she and my dad are to blame for all of this, because they were the ones from a very young age. We had a choice when I think I was like 10 years old. The family had a meeting and we could either buy a camper for our truck or we could get a ski boat. And as a family, we voted for the camper. And from that moment on, I developed a love for traveling and for camping. Money-wise, my parents didn't have a lot of money, but they made sure that the places that we went were either the beach or to the mountains. And then as my dad had retired, then my parents started traveling the United States. They didn't sell their home. They didn't do it full time, but they would go off for about a month at a time and they would travel the United States. So they set the example for me to set the goal that when I did retire, that my number one retirement goal was that I was going to travel the United States full time in my motorhome. I just didn't expect it to happen when it did. But you know what? When God knocks on that door and says, you know, Patti, this is what you're going to do, I've learned from all my years of experience, I listen and I follow.
So you were an educator. Tell us about that. Like, tell us what led you, what's your career? The whole thing about this show is, what's the second chapter, the third chapter? You know, just because we're over 55 doesn't mean that's it, folks. And so you, I'm sure, had a storied career that has allowed you to retire and now do this. So I'd love to hear more about that.
Well, and that's why I was really excited when Sheridan told me about you and your platform, because it fits perfectly into everything that I am doing with Pathways with Patti, because it basically is, it's my life. It's a reflection of my life. And I'm proud to say I'm 62 now. And mentally, I'm not even anywhere near what people think happens at 62. And that's part of me living my best dash, which I'll get into in a little bit. But starting from the age of 6, as soon as I entered kindergarten, I knew I wanted to be an educator. In elementary school, I wanted to be an elementary teacher. And then I got into 7th grade, into junior high. and I had my first physical education class. And then it's like, oh my gosh, light bulb moment. This combines my love for athletics and teaching. I'm going to be a physical education teacher. And that's exactly what I did. I went to school. That was my focus. I coached a variety of athletic teams, and then ended up coming to the high desert in Apple Valley. And I was only going to teach here for 1 year because 1 year's all I wanted to be in the high desert. And then 30 years later in the high desert, I completed my teaching career. But sadly, the thing was, I really felt like I would be teaching until I was at least 65 or 70. And when I was 50 years old, just before my 50th birthday, my dad sadly succumbed to his 5-year cancer battle. And it rocked my world is what it did. It really changed a lot for me. My dad was my main man in my life. And my teaching, I didn't have children of my own because, as I like to say, teaching was the best birth control for me. But a fantastic teacher and an awesome aunt. Those were all of my kids, and I loved it. But what I found is after he passed away, it really started changing my priorities. And what were those priorities? And who is going to be around for me once I did retire? And it really came down to family and those friends of mine that had become family and wanting to put more time into them. The other thing that by losing my dad to cancer, what it taught me was I wasn't making myself a priority. I was making everything and everybody else a priority. I had let my health get way out of hand, and that's both physically and mentally. And I really realized I lost my passion and purpose for teaching. But I knew I needed to stick around at least until I was 65 to get those 30 years in so that I could retire. And I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just knew that I'd always told myself if it got to a point where I felt like I was hurting, and not in a physical terms, but mentally hurting my students because I was not giving them my best, then I was in fact hurting them in their learning process, and it was time for me to move on. So the last couple of years before I retired, that's when I started figuring out about self-love, and self-care is not selfish, as my friend Brenda Susie says. And I took some classes for enjoyment at our local community college. I wanted to learn how to play the piano, so I took a piano class. I'd always just kind of been a self-taught drawer, so I took some drawing classes. My fellow teaching mate, Josh, he was our woodshop teacher, and he also happened to be one of my former students. And he said, Patti, you need to take my ROP woodshop class after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And my dad and I had done a lot of woodshop stuff together, but it was real basic kind of stuff. And I thought, yeah, I'm going to take this. So my last 2 years, I took his woodshop class, and I absolutely loved it and found a new passion. But what it did is it helped set me up that once I retired, you know what? Retirement does not mean just getting out on the golf course or playing pickleball or doing crafts or sitting in a rocking chair on the porch. It doesn't mean that I'm out to pasture. What it means is I get to do something else. Now, the fact is, let's look and see what that's going to be. And because of my faith in God, I knew that he had never steered me wrong before. And when the time was right, that next calling was going to come. And about a year into my retirement, all of a sudden in the Sunday Parade magazine, it was talking about people over 50 years old and their second acts. And I think, oh, well, let's see what people are doing. Maybe they'll give me an idea. And in a very small little thing, it talked about a life cycle celebrant. And I thought, well, this sounds intriguing. Now, the last 20 years of my teaching, I was an activities director at both the middle school and high school level. So I was the one that was in charge of the dances and the lunchtime activities and the assemblies and all of that kind of stuff. And so when I'm looking at what this means to be a life cycle celebrant, well, basically the bottom line is you officiate what I refer to as officiating ceremonies womb to tomb. And I specialized that year in officiating weddings and funerals. And so that's what I do is I officiated weddings and funerals. I continue to do that. But the thing that was great about it is it wasn't having to plan an entire event like I was doing as an activities director. It was just concentrating on one part of the event and creating those special moments for those individuals, whether it is a couple, many of them being my former students who asked me to officiate their wedding ceremony.
Doesn't that make you feel so good, though? Wait, we have to stop on that for a second. You've taught for 30 years. You work with a former student. You're taking classes from your former student, and you're marrying your former students. I love that. You must have been the most amazing teacher.
It's a full circle moment, I tell you, because, as an educator, you're always wondering, am I making a difference? Is this really doing anything? And in those exact moments, it's like, yes, you made an impact. You're on the right track, or, you're doing the right thing. So yes, it thrills me beyond compare. And then on the flip side of that is when those former students or those family members then ask me to officiate a ceremony of a celebration of life ceremony. And that's the thing for me that is different than me just officiating a funeral. Working with the families, I create a celebration of life service because I want people to be able to see when they are paying their last respects to that person about how that individual changed their part of the world for better. What was it that they did that made such an impact on those people that come to that celebration of life service, and to really show off the legacy that that person created, not only during their lifetime, but the legacy that will be continuing on through the seeds that were planted by that person through all the many individuals or charities or foundations that they were a part of while they were here on earth. So that's one of the highest honors I have found, is when a family comes and asks me to officiate a celebration of life service for them. So that was going along great for me. And then, of course, we all know that COVID hit. So when it came to that kind of stopped that. But right before then, because God is all powerful in my life, all of a sudden I hear this voice say to me, Patti, it's time for you to live out your number one goal for retirement. You're going to sell your amazing home that you love and adore over the last 20 years, and you're going to travel the United States full time in your RV. And I'm like, excuse me, did I hear you correctly?
Right. Well, what was that?
And exactly. I didn't think the timing was right for that. I thought it was going to be after my mom had passed away. Not that she was good, not that she was ill or anything, but I just figured that would be something I would do once she passed away. But when God spoke, that's exactly what I did. I put my house up for sale. I sold it to a very lovely couple who is just starting their family. It was their very first home. So it was the right family for my home. And I just started traveling. And the amazing people that I have met, the places that I have been, it has just added to me living my best dash, as I call it. When I go out and I speak, one of the first things I ask people is I say, how many of you are living your best life? And of course, all these people raise their hand. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. And then I say, I want to take it one step further. How many of you are truly living your best dash? And then people are like, well, what are you talking about? And so then I proceed to tell, well, I'm not talking about the dash for cash or the 50-yard dash or dashing from point A to point B. I'm talking about that dash mark between your birth date and date of death. That dash mark, when you go to a cemetery and you see somebody's headstone, that little tiny dash mark represents your entire lifetime. It tells the story of what you did with your time here on earth and what is the legacy that you left behind. And so I want to make sure that dash, when people see my dash, that it's not going to be one of those, oh man, Patti, she had all these things that she wishes she would have done or could have done or should have done. But they're going to see my dash and they're going to see, oh my gosh, can you believe it? Even during her amazing teaching and coaching career, she got done with that. And then she became a life cycle celebrant and she, started Pathways with Patti and she did this and she did that. And then to know that that dash will not just stop right there on that headstone, but because of the seeds that I am able and blessed to plant with other people along my path's journey, that legacy will carry on through my family and my friends that have become family and the different organizations that I involve myself in. And the message that I like to send to everybody, no matter what your age is, it is never too late to create a legacy that you can be proud of. Until the day you're gone, go for it.
Right. What's the adage that said there's nobody on their deathbed who said, "Oh, I wish I had worked more hours." So,
Exactly.
but you're making it fun. You're making work fun, and that's what I do too. I love what I do. It's not work. It's fun. So how do you decide where to go? So you map it out, or do you just go?
I do map it out. I am a type A personality, be that good or bad. I am a type A personality. And I know that there are many people that full time that, I mean, they just go off the top of their heads. They'll spend the night in a truck stop or a rest stop someplace, or even a Walmart shopping center parking lot. That is not for me. I want to know that I have a place that I'm going to be going and I'm going to be staying where it's going to keep me safe, but also where I'm going to get the biggest bang for my buck. I lead a very comfortable life. I am not rich monetarily, so I want to make sure that where I go and what I do, I'm getting the most out of it. And what's been so fabulous is I started many, many years ago, because even when I was teaching, when we had a break, I was off going here, there, and every place else just because of my love of travel. And even after I retired, what I realized is, you know what, Patti, every time you had a break, you would fly someplace and experience that area. But I was watching the Rose Parade, which I do every single year. And as I'm watching the Rose Parade, of course, I see the Norton Simon Museum that's right there in Pasadena. And I'm thinking, you are born and raised in Southern California, and you have never, ever been to the Norton Simon Museum. So one of the things that you're going to start doing during your retirement is you're going to look at all of these amazing places that are right here within your own backyard. And once a month, you are going to go and you're going to experience this. And I started putting all of this stuff on my social media. And I started talking about these places and showcasing them. And what ended up happening is I kept getting all these people that would say, "Oh my gosh, I want to go with you. I want to do that. That's a great idea, blah, blah, blah." And so then one of my dear friends, Cease, she says to me, "Patti, once an activities director, always an activities director. And I think you need to form a group of people that once a month, you take all of us retirees on these adventures with you." So I said, "Hey, I love it." So I started thinking about, okay, I'm a retired activities director, RAD, rad. I'm rad. And so I created this group. I call it RAD, and it stands for Retired Activities and Destinations. I have 18 women, all retired, that are in this group. And once a month for the last 3 years, we go on little adventures. And some of them are just going to one of the ladies' houses who is an artist, and she does a little craft thing with each one of us. And then other times it's going to the Huntington Library or whatever the case may be. But it's been absolutely amazing. And even during COVID, even though we technically couldn't go anywhere, I would find a park or an area for us to go to. Everybody would bring their beach chair and a lunch, and we would socially distance. But I had some kind of a group activity, because that ended up being like a lifeline for all of us to still be able to connect with other human beings. And even if they just needed to share where they were at mentally and physically, it was a great therapy session, so to speak. So that was another unexpected thing that I've been doing during my retirement.
It's so important. One of our guests, who will be a regular guest on the show, we call her Dr. Melissa B., but she's actually an RN and a PhD, and she's world-renowned expert on aging and dementia. And so many things she's talked about, is what keeps you from getting dementia and Alzheimer's. It's that camaraderie. It's having people, because the biggest problem is, as we get older, we lose spouses, we lose parents, and we're alone. and finding this group, this rad group, which I love. And then the other thing is learning new things. She's like 10 minutes a day. So you're spending time, you're going to new museums, doing these things. You guys are on the right path. It's fantastic. I love it.
Yes. And I mean, it's changed. I mean, the thing that's so interesting, I just shared this last week when I was with a group of them, is that I did not realize at the time when I put this together and put it out there, that what we have discovered is because everyone, the oldest person in our group, she's 82 years old. The youngest person happens to be me, actually. But we're at different stages in our lives, and each one of us are experiencing different things, either with having to think about putting family in care facilities, or they themselves are now getting ready to turn 65, and what that means for Medicare, and what we're doing is we're all sharing, or we're all asking for feedback or advice on, well, do you know somebody that I can talk with on this, or how did you deal with that? And so, with me being the youngest, it's like I'm taking notes big time.
I'm writing a book
because I am learning life lessons so much from all of them. But besides getting out and going and experiencing these things together, we're also learning these life lessons about how to help our loved ones and help ourselves as we age. And knowledge is power. I mean, I knew that as an educator, but it even is more definite as you get older. I mean, you never want to lose that will for wanting to learn. And the more things you learn, the better you set yourself up for how when these things happen, you can prepare for them.
Oh, I think it's so great. I just love it. So your women are all in your area? Or are they all over? Do you have different rad groups?
Yeah, they're all here in the high desert. And what's so interesting is when we do go places and people see, are you some kind of a group or whatever? We just kind of tell them, everybody goes, oh, I want to belong to that. And of course, unfortunately, where we're located in the high desert, we're kind of off in a distance, type of area. But what I encourage people is even if you just start where you meet at a coffee shop with a couple people and just talk with one another, it can be as simple as that. And then with the invention of Zoom, one of the things that I learned very quickly from a session that I attended over a year ago, the Week of Kindness and Gratitude, there was a gentleman who was talking about gratitude. And during COVID, he happened to be one of those people in New York City that they were completely shut down. They could not even leave their tiny little 700 and 800 foot homes. And he said he was getting very depressed, and he reached out to his friends, his community through Zoom, and said, I have this idea of every morning, the first, for 15 minutes, if you'd like to Zoom and just talk about the things that we're grateful for, and that's how we'll start our day. And so for the 2 years during COVID, every morning, and I think he said there was about 24 or 25 of them, every morning at 8:00, the first 15 minutes, they Zoomed to talk about the things that they were grateful for. And it helped them connect. And that's what I let people know. You don't have to physically be in the same room to make these connections and make a difference. I mean, through this wonderful technology, you can Zoom with people and still, it's still different, but it's better than nothing. And it's a connection, and you can learn from one another, and you can share experiences. And I mean, a body in motion stays in motion, and that's both physically and mentally.
Well, we saw that in COVID. So many of us, I watched, sadly, my in-laws completely deteriorate during that time. And you remind me so much of my mother-in-law, just your energy. And she was such a vibrant woman. And she was in a assisted living, and they locked them in an 800 square foot room. Basically, they delivered food, and people need people, like you said, a body in motion, and they weren't in motion. It's so sad. I know we'll never do that again, but I love that you put this group together, and the traveling. And so you do your Zooms if you're traveling with your group.
Yeah, and in fact, it was kind of interesting because last year I thought, you know what, I'm going to do a team building activity through Zoom. And so I had found I researched and stuff, And so I put these little goodie bags together and I mailed them to each one of the people in the group. And I let them know on the outside of the envelope, don't open this until we Zoom. And basically, so then we all got on Zoom, and then I told them, okay, in your package, you've got this, pull this out, and so I did this activity with them. And through these different things that we had done during the hour, the very last thing that we had done, I had put a little tea light candle with a match and some marshmallows and a couple of graham crackers and a chocolate square. And we all made s'mores together over this little candle and stuff. And that's how we ended our thing. So even through Zoom, I mean, it took some planning ahead of time for me to get this. They absolutely loved it and loved our time together. So you could still do it. If you've got the heart and the will and the want, you can make it happen.
Your friends are so lucky to have you.
Oh, well, I'm lucky to have them. I mean, I truly am.
So tell us, in 4 years, what's your favorite place that you've been in the United States?
Oh my gosh. What is so interesting is my life has been based on what I call PMA, positive mental attitude.
Oh, yes.
And
that I can see.
Not to say that,
that I can see.
And not that everything is positive. I understand that. I am a realist. But one of the things that I have worked on my entire life to do is that when there is something that's not so good, what is the lesson that I can learn from it? Or what is it that I can take from it? And so every place that I have gone, even though it may not be the nicest campground, or even the surrounding community may be very, very poor, the thing that I always try to do is I start finding the people, and the people, I hear their stories and the things that of how they're living their best dash. And it's almost like every single state, because people go, well, don't you want to travel more of the world instead of just the United States? And I do a combination of both. I still am doing that. But what I have found that is so amazing is every state in the United States is almost like its own little country. It's got, some of them have different dialects, as you know, or accents, or their laws are a little bit different, or their street lights and their signals and things of that tend to let me know that I'm not in Southern California anymore. And that's what I find so exciting about traveling. And so to ask me about what is my very favorite place, every place I've been. And I know that sounds corny, but it's part of the thrill of the adventure for me, because my life's motto is life's an adventure, enjoy the journey. And that is my goal. Every single place that I go, I am looking to enjoy that part of the journey, because I know how very blessed that I am to be able to have this opportunity to do this. And I know that not everybody does. And I know physically and monetarily, a lot of people aren't able to do it. And that's why I make sure that I share my journeys on social media, because even like with my mom, she is now to a point that physically she's not able to do a lot of these things. So to know that on social media, she's able to see my pictures, she's able to read my daily blogs, she's able to relive some of the places that she and my dad went to, or experience places she never got to go to. It's like she gets to be there. So when I go to these places, I look for those little, diamonds in the rough, wherever they may be, and showcase that, because every place there is something good in every place that I go.
I love that. I so wish that my mother-in-law was still alive, because I would literally introduce you right after this and you two would become the best of friends. Oh my gosh. And she would have loved to do what you're doing. So this is really a treasure to have you. So we ask all of our guests 2 questions at the end of the interview. I think I know the answer to the first one, but what is your greatest accomplishment since you've turned 50?
My greatest accomplishment since I turned 50 was knowing that it was just the beginning of a second major chapter in my life, and the world was my oyster to do whatever I chose to do. I just needed to make sure that it was my choosing. And because of that, as you had mentioned earlier, it's like I haven't worked a day in my life since I retired, because it's my choice to do all of these amazing things with such incredible people.
Oh, I love that. And then where do you see yourself in 10 years?
In 10 years, I still see I see myself in a brick and mortar place for one thing. I will still be traveling though. I will not be giving up the motorhome. So that's a vital part of my life, is the travel part of it. But I also see myself having a couple books. I also see myself having my own podcast, because my goal is to, my why for all of it is to pay it forward. And until the day I can no longer do that, because I am 6 feet under the ground, I plan on paying it forward to as many people in as many ways as I possibly can, because in my 62 years of life, I have had so many people bless me with their talents, their knowledge, their expertise, their advice, that they didn't have to, but they did, to make my life better and easier. So now that I'm entering my sageness, as I like to say, it's time for me to pay it forward, just like all those people did for me. So the possibilities continue to be endless.
Patti, it's just been such a pleasure to meet you. You are certainly living your Dash life, and I love that analogy, and that's gonna stick with me with the things that I do. What is that dash in between? Good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. This has been fantastic.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.